So for those of you who are on, let me just introduce the team. You'll see was under SoulSalt is Shannon D. She runs operations, legal, and customer relations at SoulSalt. Jessica Glein, that you can see here, is helping us with all things digital marketing, SEO related, and website copy. So, and many other brilliant things that we don't know that we need from her, but we do need them. And then Michelle, you can see Ty and Wes and Andres, and we have Kat coming on soon, I hope. There she is. Hey, Kat.
Hi, sorry, there's nothing like technical difficulties on an important night. Hi there.
It's just fine. You're here. Just jump on mute. We're going to get started in just a second, and then we'll give you some time to speak. You'll be right after I am. How's that? Yay. Okay. So welcome tonight. I am Lynn Christian, the founder of SoulSaltInc. And at SoulSalt, we are a coaching company that invites people to find their truth and live it. And tonight's events for non-binary people are allies and anybody who believes in the power of unity, allyship, and fearless leadership. This is more than a campaign that we're going to support for Harrison Walz. It's a gathering of those of us who want to stand together, embrace our identities, and actively support a vision for the future. We want to lead out, especially those of us who've been overlooked, and yet we consistently show up. And we want to support the women, specifically women of color and Black women who have done that. Tonight, I'm going to share a few thoughts about what we believe behind this effort, and then there will be 4 other speakers. We'll be offering up our thoughts about the issues, challenges, and things that we want to challenge you to do, such as take purposeful action. And the reason for this is when Donald Trump was elected, we all experienced something. And think about what you did that first morning. I experienced visceral fear like I have never before. The hope, the optimism, the progressive thought that I felt was going to be enduring after the Obama years was basically flushed down a golden toilet in one night. And the truth that next morning and many mornings to come was that hope had been quickly erased and replaced with dread. And that dread became actualized over the last 4 years that he was in office, and even after that, while Biden has been in office. Number one, there was a transgender military ban on an Obama-era policy that allowed those of us in the queer population to serve openly. There were many rollbacks in our protections in healthcare, in education, in housing. There was the appointment of many anti-LGBTQ plus judges. That affects our marriage equality. That affects anti-discrimination laws, and particularly those of us who are vulnerable in the trans and in the non-binary part of our culture. We are very vulnerable right now. There were also religious exemptions to those people who wanted to deny us services and people like us. So we've had a lot of reasons for our hearts to be broken in the past 8 years, let's say. However, I believe the thing that has not been broken is our spirit. And so tonight we have an opportunity to be stronger, more impactful today than ever before. And I also believe that there has been a group of individuals who have led the way. They've been resilient, they've been deliberate, they've been organized, they've been united, and they've been intelligent. And these are women of color, specifically, like I said earlier, Black women, who are now ready, and I believe that we can hand the keys of the kingdom to them, and our futures will be in very good hands. They know what it's like to be kicked upon, othered, downplayed, and forgotten. And Black women, in my opinion, have been the backbone of many of our movements. They've been standing on the front lines for decades in every struggle. And again, they have been leading, they've been organizing, and they have been unmatched in their strength and resilience. And that is one reason why we brought one of them on today. Ty is here to represent that population. And I believe this is their time. I do believe in handing over the presidency to a Black woman. I trust her ability to lead us through and solve many of our problems that we're dealing with today, not in our country only, but in the world. And I know that she can't solve everything, but she can get us started. And so as non-binary people, if we can remember what it feels like to be marginalized and overlooked and divided, and then trust somebody who knows that as well. I think it's our chance to reclaim power, proudly proclaim our pronouns, and take a stance for who we truly are. So we only have about 70 to 69 days left, depending upon how you like to count the hours, before the election results will be available. And we need, in these next few days, we need to leave everything on the field. Basically, we have a couple of months. The DNC is now complete. We're in that final marathon to the finish line. And so be thinking of ways to activate your energy. And as each speaker comes on, they're going to share ways where we can join the cause together, give you ideas of what you can do. And when we finish tonight, we're going to challenge you to commit to 3 things that you will do to help us go in a direction where more people can live with more equity. And that's what it means for all of us to join together. So I don't think tonight is just about politics. I think tonight is about who we are and what we are as a country and as Americans. And as non-binary people, I believe that we are part of that identity, a very critical part. And I think that we need to align ourselves tonight to fight together, to have vision together, to stand together. And that's why I wanted to have something separate than HRC or Equalities, Utah, or any other gay pride group. We can recognize the value from our own perspective independently, and then join that with other people who can align with our perspective, and we can align with them. So let me give you a couple of ideas just from my standpoint. If you're not registered to vote, which I'll bet everybody is on this call, but if you're not, do so, and don't just register to vote. Make sure that you sign up to have your ballot tracked. And we'll be putting links in the chat so you can find out how to do that. Encourage somebody, if you know somebody who hasn't registered to vote, do the same. Not just to register, but to watch and track their ballot. Tonight, we have some great t-shirts that Wes has designed, and we're going to give the majority of the profits to the Harris Walz campaign. So one thing you could do is buy a t-shirt for everybody that you know that needs one. And finally, another thing that you can do is donate of your time. And so we'll have some links also in the chat where you can find organizations that you can give your time, give your energy, give your voice to, and show up to represent the non-binary population. So right now, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. I'm going to ask you to get out a piece of paper or use a digital tool that you might have, and I'm going to set the stage for you to lean into these strong parts that we're trying to rally today. So grab something, or you can jot something down. It can be your phone. It can be a sticky note. It can be a notebook, but grab that. And Shannon and Jessica, when you think everybody's ready, let me know. And I'm going to ask some questions. So I don't want to judge it myself. So Shannon, Jess, tell me when you think everybody's ready to go.
I think we're good.
Okay. First thing you want to do is think of a person you want to be most like. Is there somebody that comes to mind? Either somebody that you know of from history, somebody from a fiction novel, somebody like Jean-Luc Picard or Wonder Woman, somebody that you can think of that you'd like to be most like. And just imagine that person in your mind, and then write down 2 or 3 of their strongest traits that are the reason that they attracted your attention tonight. So think of somebody you'd like to be like. Think about their strongest traits and write down 2 to 3 of those things that attract your attention to them tonight. And then I'd ask you to write down something about when you took a stand. We're taking a stand tonight, so it could be tonight. And I would ask you, what is it that's compelling you to take a stand tonight? What is the characteristic or the value? What is the principle that you're standing for tonight? Write that down. Or if you've taken a stand in the past, I know there was a story that was told back to me, and I vaguely remember this, of having my fists up and ready to fight my paternal grandmother. when she tried to tell me that I was a little girl, I should be a lady and I needed to wear dresses. And I got in her face and said, I'm not a little girl, I'll never be a lady. And I was ready to fight. Later on, I recognized that what I was standing for was personal freedom. And what I was exhibiting was courage. And those seem to have always been a part of threads pulled through my life. So think about times when you've taken a stand and then write down the words, what were you standing for? Was it equality? Was it adventure? Was it beauty? Was it justice? What have you taken a stand for? Write those words down. And then finally, think about a trait that if we could just give you a pill or put it in a tattoo or something, it would absolutely be completely yours. What is one trait that you would absolutely love to possess 120% of the time if you could just instantly have it? What's that one trait? And now take a minute and notice the words that you've used, because these words have everything to do with you and very little to do with anybody else or anything else. In fact, they're indicators of things that maybe you value the most. They might be some of the most badass, brilliant, bold parts of you. And maybe they lead you sometimes, but maybe they're just aspirational or latent. And so the challenge I give you tonight is, as you listen and you take notes and you commit to action, let these pieces lead, because you would not have written these words if they weren't already somewhere inside of you, either as a seedling, maybe a seed, or maybe a growing plant. They are in you, or you would not have come up with them today. So I encourage you tonight, over the next 2 months and into the future, with hopefully Harrison Walz leading the way, that these words will guide you as to how to be your best, most badass, brilliant self. So with that said, I hope we've set the stage for tonight. And I'm going to introduce somebody who's going to come on and share what she has to say. This is, and she is she, they, and gender queer, which there it is right there by her name, Kat Palmer. Kat's a longtime activist, and she's been in Salt Lake advocating for causes like reproductive rights, trans visibility, intersectional feminism, and also mental health awareness. And we have some mental health professionals on the call, so I think we're in good hands, right? Yes. Known for her viral artwork, including Go Home Trump. Yay, Kat. Kat combines activism with art to address pressing social issues. She's a public speaker. She's an award-winning photographer, and she has a studio in downtown Salt Lake. She's a regular contributor to Good Things Utah and City Weekly. She also serves as program director for the Utah Queer Film Festival, and she lives in Salt Lake City with her non-binary spouse, 2 teens, and 3 senior pets, and I've met those pets, and they're adorable. So, Kat, please come on and share what you would like these brilliant individuals to hear tonight.
Thank you. And my apologies. I told Shannon I'm like an 87-year-old. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm still learning how to use technology while I'm here on Earth. So thank you for your patience. So thank you, Lynn, for having me tonight, and thank you everyone for being here. I know we have a couple cameras off, and that's okay, but I want to get a feel for where everyone is located. I know some of you, but I want to get a feel for how many people are here locally in Salt Lake City. I don't know how to, I think we can do like a virtual hands up if you don't want to turn on your cameras, and that's okay. But if you're here local, like do a little hands
Salt
up.
Lake, here we go.
And then if you're located elsewhere, if you're still in America, still also do a hands up, because that will help me know if you're familiar with our system. And then are the folks there? I don't even know how to look at the chat, which you
Well,
think it's
Michelle's in
2024?
Kansas City, is that right, Michelle, right now?
Oh, there's more than just what I can see on my screen. Okay, oh, this is 5 more.
I'm
7 here.
here, I'm visiting here, I live back east.
Okay, okay,
All right. And then Wes is in Washington State.
okay,
I'm not sure where Frankie's from. Jess Gleim is here in Salt Lake.
okay. All right, that just gives me an idea for the takeaway things. As you know, if you're in the UK, it's a little bit different for the takeaway things I'm talking about. So, okay, thank you so much. That helps me. And just thank you for having me. All right. I've been watching democracy slowly die in my state, and it's been hard. I have a trans kid, and I miss the days that we were fighting on Capitol Hill for clean air. And in the last few days, it seems like the administration has been slowly stripping away rights of LGBTQ folks. And so this topic that Lynn has asked us to discuss is near and dear to my heart. So thank you for having me. As non-binary folks, supporting Kamala Harris can be particularly important for several reasons: representation and advocacy. Why Kamala Harris is not non-binary herself, her position as vice president represents a significant milestone in terms of diversity and representation in US politics. Her leadership and administration supports and often influences a broader discussion about gender and inclusion. And I think we have felt that. I mean, I hope we have all felt that in seeing her talk about different policies and changes. And by backing her, you contribute to a political climate that values and strives for increased representation for all marginalized groups, which is really beautiful, including non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals. And Harris's visibility and influence as the first female, first Black, and first South Asian vice president symbolizes a broader commitment to diversity and representation in American politics. And supporting her is not just about backing an individual, but about endorsing a vision of leadership that embraces a variety of perspectives and experiences. And this support can contribute to a more representative and dynamic government that reflects a diverse makeup of the nation, ultimately leading to a more comprehensive and effective policymaking. I don't know how many, can I get a raise of hands with this one too? How many of you follow Spencer to the West on socials? Do you know who I'm talking about when I say this? Okay. He's incredible. And he came out with something that really spoke to my soul when he said this. He's also a queer individual. I do not think that Kamala is going to fix all of our problems. When Harris is elected, and I love how he said that, when Harris is elected. When Harris is elected, I do not think we are suddenly going to have world peace or suddenly going to have equity and justice. Our two-party system does not work like that. But I do believe we'll have an environment where the activism and organizing, which is so needed now and forever, will be allowed to flourish. And I believe if the other side wins, we will not have an environment where activism and organizing can flourish. I think we will have silencing and chaos. And based on her pick for VP, Walz, I think she's listening to the voters and has a mindset for growth and has good people in ears. And all of that gives me hope to become more equitable and justice-minded. I loved that. When he said that, I shared it. I had to write it down. I was like, yes, 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 yes. Because I think, as you all know, once she is voted in, it's not like this magic wand is waved and all of a sudden everything is perfect in the world and everything, it's not like that. We still have work to do. And a lot of that happens on a grassroots level and locally. And that is where my passion lies personally, is on a grassroots level. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. But we need her in office for these reasons, because we can't, I don't believe that we can flourish in chaos. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to get our activism done and to get the things done that we need to be getting done. It's still going to be an uphill battle. So I'm not going to go on my soapbox about that right now and go off script, but it's still going to be an uphill battle. So I'm going to talk about some grassroots things here. How many, I want to also just to raise a hand, how many right now are involved locally in your community? So I set my water over here. Please hold. Okay, so we've got a handful of you. Okay, good. Because I don't want to feel like I'm just like speaking to the choir. You know what I mean? That I'm just telling you things you already know. You're like, thanks, Kat. Like I already know all of these things. So, okay. These are, I'm just going to go down the list. I'm not going to go into detail with these things. If you want to ask questions or dive into them more, we can talk about it afterwards. And then I'm going to give you the 3 takeaways. So you can join local organizations or groups, get connected with your community organizations. I know each one of you have community organizations where you live. You can volunteer for campaigns. You can volunteer for the Kamala Harris campaign or get involved with a local grassroots, somebody that's, you know, going for city council or the school board, volunteer for them. Attend town hall meetings and public forums, participate in your local community events. You can join advocacy campaigns and also support your local media and journalism because those papers are slowly dying. So please support them. Do you know who your local senator and representatives are? Do you have a relationship with them? Do you know who they are? Do you understand how your local government works? Have you attended committee hearings? The cool thing with COVID and the pandemic, like everything's online now. So you don't even have to put on pants. You don't have to leave your house. It's really great. You can do it all on Zoom. Don't ask me how to use Zoom or to train you on it, but Shannon and Lynn can help you with that. But you can do most of it from home now. It's really great. And you can follow along with all of that. You can follow the bills. I actually can train you how to do that. You can follow the bills that matter most to you. And the thing with your being a constituent is that if your representatives or senators do not hear from you, they're taking that as consent. They are thinking like, oh, I've heard from nobody on this issue. I'm just going to go ahead. So they need to hear from you. Emails, calls, text messages. If you don't want to talk to anybody, if you're like my spouse and is like, I don't want to talk to anyone, just text them. They're fine with that as well. Most of them have their phone numbers listed. So you can just shoot a text during session when you can look up wherever you're at, find out when your session is. Ours happens during Sundance. I think they moved that up on purpose, but ours happens during Sundance. Shoot them a text. Tell them how you feel about it. They want it and say, I am your constituent, because they don't want to hear from you if you're not their constituent. So it's important that you're having that relationship with them. Something that's not really political, but that affects everyone that is non-binary. Outdated forms. I just want to talk about them. I'm so thankful for allies, and we need them. And this is a way to advocate for yourself and for others. I just want to talk about this for a second. It's a takeaway, a homework assignment you can do that just helps everyone in the community. I had a friend, he is cis, hetero, white fella, who is a fantastic ally. And he works in health insurance. He's been friends with my spouse and I for a long time. And he works high up in health insurance and asks us a lot of questions and is involved a lot. And he's voting for Harris. He noticed things on the forms and in meetings started advocating more to update their forms, make them more inclusive. And because he had a relationship with us, he knew he needed to do that. That is another takeaway that you can do. The fact is our passports can have gender marker X. Our driver's license have gender marker X. If these forms only have male and female on them, they are outdated. A lot of the times, these forms, nobody's brought it up, right? And so they just keep things the same way they've always had things. So if you work for a company, if you see things, it's usually a simple phone call or a chat with somebody. and they just need to update their forms. And more often than not, it just hasn't been brought to somebody's attention. So that's a really easy takeaway to help our community and advocate for that. The last one, and this is something that as I've attended campaign rallies and helped with different things in my community, a lot of young people before it switched over to Harris were not engaged, and they were not planning on voting this time. And my heart was like, what? As soon as I turned 18, I was voting. I was excited to vote. I used to practice vote when I was 16. What do you mean you're not voting? What? We have 20-something-year-olds in our family, and we get them over here and we have voting parties. What do you mean you're not voting? They weren't excited. They weren't excited about the candidates at all. They were like, these are our options. Like, we're not voting. We're sitting this one out. So if you have young people in your life, if you know young people, make sure they're registered to vote. Talk to them, get them engaged, talk to them about the issues, because a lot of them don't think it matters. And it does matter. It super really does matter. And especially on a local level, in our area, there have been people that have won by 3 votes, and they won those elections by really small margins. Votes matter. And so be talking to young people. I mean, you don't have to beat it into them or anything like that, but make sure you're talking to them and getting them engaged and getting them excited. But I feel like young people now, because Harris is involved and Walz is involved, I feel like that excitement is back. I mean, I don't know if you all felt it, but I felt it. I was finally excited because I think we were all just like, okay, cool, Biden. And now it's like, we're finally excited about someone, right? I've also noticed there's a lot of Republicans that are coming out for Harris because they're choosing country over party. They are deciding, you know what, we don't have to do the same thing we've always done, because that's how exciting Harris is, that she's bringing everyone together, and we need somebody that is uniting folks. And I feel like she's finally, that we have somebody that's that exciting. So that is what I had to talk about. I know that we are on time constraints, and I'm happy to go back and dive into any of these in more detail. Local politics is something I've been passionate about for over 20 years. I've been up on Capitol Hill when my hair used to have color to it. So, and I had a lot less wrinkles. So I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have questions for me, bring them at me. So, and thank you again, Lynn, for having me. And thank you, Shannon, for patience.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. We appreciate that. And so you can directly chat with Kat. You can even ask for her contact information if you feel like you need to talk to her further. And she can say yes or no. Our next speaker is Wes. And I've known Wes for several years. In fact, Wes, I don't even remember how long we've known each other, but it's been a pleasure to know you over the last 2 decades. Wes is a sound healer, a music producer, and a graphic designer who creates under the name. And Wes, come off mute and tell us how you say this, because it's capital S, capital U, capital Y, capital U, capital M, capital E.
It's pronounced Suyume.
Suyume. Did I get it right? Yes. Wesley holds an MFA in film and graphic design from the American University, and they were inspired to pursue a career in graphic design after falling in love with the design of album covers. Who can relate to that? Show posters, you can relate to that too, and other music-related paraphernalia. What is this word here, Wes? Ephemera. Ephemera. Yes, thank you. Prior to transitioning to a new career as a sound healer, they worked as a senior visual designer at Google, and they were good. And that's where they were responsible for leading communication design for Google Ads. In Wes's free time, they can be found spending time with their partner and 2 kids outside enjoying nature, discovering hidden gems across the Pacific Northwest. And if you haven't looked yet, go to chat and look at the t-shirts. You're going to want to buy one for yourself and your friends. Wes designed these and designed them with many different attitudes. So you're going to see some things there that I think you're going to enjoy. So Wes, please share with us some of your talent and your insights.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for having me tonight. It's so great to be with you all here tonight. I will say that my pronouns are they and them, and I'm located outside of Seattle, Washington. But I spent over 10 years living in DC. I moved to DC about a month before 9/11, and I saw a city just completely changed in a matter of a day, and I watched it go all throughout the George Bush years, and then finally, right before I was moving out, something different happened, and that's when Obama ran for president, and I'll never forget that night. In 2008, that like all of a sudden, like when the news called his election sometime after 11 p.m. that night, I was in Mount Pleasant, DC, and I could hear outside my apartment just like horns blasting. The entire mood of the city went from a fearful place into one of joyous explosion. And there I felt hope, and I felt like anything was possible. And I was just all of a sudden excited to be an American, and so proud to be in that city at that time. And then that night too, like a lot of people went down to the White House and just gathered around the White House. I don't think George Bush was there that night, but it was just incredible to witness. And then from there, I kind of moved across the country to here, and to Seattle, and I lived in Denver, Colorado in between that time. And I will say that from what I learned from being in DC, where the national politics is like a soap opera where everyone is glued to their TV, and I had so many friends that worked in politics, that worked for Obama's campaign, that worked for Amy Klobuchar's campaign, and worked for just a plethora of other senators as well, is that the one thing that we all can do is like, it's easy to volunteer, and it's easy to help canvass locally, to be out in our community and knocking on doors and talking to people and having discussions and sharing your point of view as to why you are for the candidate, as well as like asking them, what do they stand for? What are their values? As well as honoring their values if they are different than yours. Another thing that we can do besides canvassing is like also calling, using phone banks and whatnot, and donating, obviously, and voting. But the one thing I would like to say is that some of us, like I'm from North Carolina originally, and half of my family is Republican. And it's hard, it's very difficult. Like these times, I feel like the past 20 years, our country has gotten more divisive and more split down the middle. And it seems like we all can just like resort to making fun of each other, despite like what we believe in and everything else. And I think like one of the things that we can do is like to become heart-centered. And when I say become heart-centered, we step into a place in the present moment and allow ourselves to feel what it is inside of us, which is love, and to allow that love to engulf us, and to then be in a place of non-judgment, and to step out of our ego consciousness and to be in the present moment, and to allow ourselves to exist in this world, but also honor and allow everyone else to have their own experience in this planet. And then while we're doing that, we can then tap into our true power. And I think our true power is love. And oftentimes that we've forgotten that. And it's so easy to get carried away with politics, with all of the things that matter, without allowing everyone's differences and opinions to also exist. And I think by showing up and being more heart-centered and loving, then we can ultimately heal this division and separation that exists in our world today. And then as far as like having family members that are also on the other side of the ballot and the Republican side. I think that for me, it's been talking to my aunt in Georgia, in rural Georgia. It's been talking to my brother-in-law that lives in Eastern Washington, who's also Republican, and trying to hear their story and to hear like what they stand for. And oftentimes what I find is that there's so many commonalities that exist between us, but something about their fear for our side or for the Democratic ticket that they do not want to sign up for. And I am patient and I am trying my best to sell them on why Kamala Harris is the best reason for our president, because it to me is so clear after seeing how much Donald Trump has worn us all down through his presidency, and how he's made fun of everyone, and how he continues to act like a child that's untethered from reality oftentimes. And so it's difficult, but I think like the only thing that we really can control in our life is ourselves. And once we step into our own personal power, then we can ultimately heal the collective of humanity as well. And so, yeah, in summary, just get out and vote, be active in your local community, and canvass where possible, when possible, and if possible, drive to another district that might not share the same views as yours, and then get out there and have conversations with people and try to see their point of view, but also allow them to see yours. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. Thank you, Wes.
Yeah.
I know that you are a healer, and so if we follow some of your advice, it might help with the healing. So thank you for your presence and your message. Our next guest is Ty Dixon, she, her, coaching consultant. I had the privilege of meeting Ty when we were both out in Boston, learning some new skills from some Harvard professors, right, Ty? And Ty is an executive coach specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI as we know it. She also works in talent management and strategy and has 18 years of experience across various sectors. She was the Chief Talent and Equity Officer at E.L. Haynes Public Charter School Network, and previously served as a National Director of State Offices and Field Operations for the Children's Defense Fund. Ty has a background in advocacy, social justice, and leadership development, having held leadership roles at Teach for America and practiced civil litigation. She also teaches at Howard University School of Law, her alma mater, where she's been the moot court coach and now adjunct professor for 14 years. Ty holds a JD from Howard, a BA from Spelman College, and a master's in education from the University of St. Thomas, along with coaching and HR leadership certificates. She's smart, she's kind, and she is clever. And she's going to talk to us about what we can do from a Black woman's perspective, from the leadership trenches that we're trying to support and put in power in the White House. So Ty, tell us what you need to tell us.
Thank you, Len, and thank you for having me here. It's really, what you're doing is already helping me. I think what we're forgetting in all of this is that day to day, we're hearing so many things that we're not used to hearing. So many things that people did not used to be allowed to say, right, are now being said every day to us, and we're taking that in as the air that we're breathing. And it's easy to start believing that the whole world feels negatively about you and your identity because it's on the news, right? And it didn't used to be so prominently. And so for me, being on calls like this, knowing that not everybody feels like the worst things we're hearing every day, is encouraging, and it gives me energy for the fight that we have ahead of us. So I'm thankful to just be able to be in communities that are pretty far away from my own. I'm all the way in DC, but also to know that these conversations are going on in so many different places. And I just want to talk about just a little bit of a different perspective, because I've been in this DEI work over the years. What I've seen is this gradual buildup to kind of where we are now. And there's a lot built into what's being taken away. right? So we hear sometimes when we're removed from education, this conversation around book bans and what people are able to talk about and read about and learn about. And I've witnessed firsthand the shrinking budgets and people having retaliation for what they're teaching and how we're learning, and the fact that we're talking about a history that people don't agree on the words that we're using, right? And we didn't always link that to this moment we're in today, where now all of a sudden the rhetoric every day, the things that we are hearing about Kamala Harris around this whole administration are things that are dog whistles to the past, right? Things that we don't want to make okay again, and we don't want to become desensitized to, that are real discriminatory, nasty things around the underbelly of the history of this country. And people are trying to bring them back up to the surface, and that affects all of us, right? That means that everybody who's from a marginalized group, is every bit of progress and learning that people have done, all this stuff since 2020 and the conversations we've been having, all that rolls back if it becomes okay to say some of the things that Donald Trump and JD Vance have been saying in a very public way. If people get used to language like saying that we're calling the vice president of the United States a bitch, right? We're doing that in a public way. That's okay. That desensitizes us to this word, right? Which is a harmful word used in very derogatory context. These allegations that people are making about how Kamala Harris made it to where she is, it's insulting. It calls on old tropes around this kind of idea that the only way that a woman can advance in the world is by doing something inappropriate with someone with power to get power herself, right? That's a problem. It's a problem for people to say and assume that for someone who has earned their position, for someone who has done more work than the person who is speaking has, to get to where they are in their lives and qualified to do it, and have somebody take that away by calling them names. I think we have to not become insensitized to these comments that she's incompetent, or I heard Donald Trump say about Kamala Harris that she was not smart enough to hold a press conference, right? And I, again, like Kamala has said in her speeches, I take Donald Trump to be a very unserious person, but he is saying very serious things. Things that if we make it okay for people to say those things unchallenged, right, and unexamined, we make it okay for them to say that about everybody who is doing their job and trying hard to prove themselves in their workplace, and then have somebody with no basis whatsoever discussing them as incompetent to do their job, incompetent to hold a press conference, when we all know whose press conferences are ringing of incompetence these days, right? And yet these words have power. I hear people repeating them, right? I hear people repeating these statements about her race and her identity, and whether or not she's a chameleon, pretending to be one race in one group and pretending to be another race in another group. That's not true. That's not real, right? But yet those of us who come from a mixed race heritage are watching and hearing that this is what people think of us, right? That maybe we're not all the way the race we identify with, that maybe, right? We've got to hear these things out loud that we're not used to hearing. And so that, coupled with the erasure of protections, right? The erasure of really feeling like we have people who will be able to stand up and hold people accountable for saying racist things, right? And then the increase of racist things that we're allowing people to say creates a very dangerous society with very few protections for people who want to feel like they still can stand on the advancements that we fought so hard for, right? All of the culturally responsive work that we've done around education, all of the ways that we've brought into the workplace a conversation about inclusion, all of the ways that we've talked about how people's identities can be recognized, valued, and celebrated and honored, and how we can make space. We're standing on the precipice of losing that. And I really, truly, when I decided to do this work, never thought we would get there, right? I didn't think it was possible for my son, who is 5, to face a world where he might have less rights than I have had up to this point, right? So when we talk about like the things that we're hearing and how horrible it is, I want us to really think about a world where the Trump administration is successful, right? What would that mean for us in our futures? And I'm not even thinking about the last Trump administration, because I think the last Trump administration was like the light version of what we're about to actually experience here, which is a completely deliberate and planned attack on rights, freedoms, identity, and inclusion, right? And that it's dismantling strategically. Last Trump administration didn't have the wits to dismantle strategically. They dismantled haphazardly, right? Now there's a plan, and there's a whole bunch of people trying to execute that plan, and it's against all of us from any marginalized group, right? There is nothing for us there that is positive. So I hope that we in this moment can be really, really clear that being united, but also not normalizing language, not getting used to ourselves, because I find myself shoving it down a little bit sometimes, just trying to get used to hearing it so I don't wince every time I hear it. Then I have to say, no, wince when you hear it, right? People aren't supposed to say that. That is a racist thing to say, right? The things that we're saying about all of these different groups of people are not the right things, right? I want people to hear that and I want them to react to it. And what I'm afraid of is that people aren't reacting anymore, right? We're so used to that's what they're going to say that we're making it okay for that to become the language of an entire campaign, which means it's going to come into our workplaces, it's going to come into our communities, it's going to come into our convenience stores, it's going to come into all of the things that we go to do on a day-to-day basis and continue to reharm us and re-traumatize us from things that we thought we moved past. So my position is that what we can do now is we can't let that happen. We can't let that happen, right? If there's too much at risk, there's too much at stake. And it means the world to us to be able to have our freedom, our autonomy and value as people. And there's more at stake here than just politics, right? It's our very right to live and be free and to be joyful and be in community and be allies and see families that look different and all of the experiences of people that look different united under one heading that says, this is the freedom that we have in America. I'm not willing to give that back. So I'm thinking from the perspective of being just outside DC on January 6th. I remember watching on the news, angry mobs overtaking the Capitol, literally just 15 minutes down the road from where I was living with my infant baby, right? And I'm thinking, wow, I'm in DC, I'm on the East Coast, and these people are right outside my door, hating me, holding Confederate flags, causing violence, right? Overthrowing the structure that is our government. I remember on that day that I went out on my front lawn, and I'm not proud of this moment, but I took my rainbow Black Lives Matter flag off my front lawn. I did not want to invite truckers and skinheads to my door, right? I didn't want that to be a danger to my family. And I remember in that moment feeling like, wow, everything inside of me shifted because I've advocated a lot. I've been in community organizing. I've taken a lot of controversial positions. I've been standing up to communities that scared me. But the idea that right outside my door, people who hate me could come and they could want something not good for me and my family was more than I could bear. So I realized in that moment the bravery it would take to fight on beyond that point. I know that what I did, I would probably do again with that little baby. I was scared. I was scared and they were right here and I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. I wanted to be as small as possible in that moment. But I won't do that again. I won't do that again. I learned since then that we've got to take up space and we can't back down. So I just want to share with you that perspective from the East Coast. We're thankful that groups like yours are organizing, having this conversation, and we can't let down not only at the polls, but in our everyday conversations. The stuff that's happening is not okay, and we need you to stand up for us too.
Hi, thank you. So when we get ready for the commitments, you may want to add something. I know I'm adding to my list, which is to do what Ty has said and not normalize some of these words, these phrases, and these attitudes. To say they're weird, to say they're not normal, and to push against them and not just cringe when they happen. So Ty, we're with you and I so appreciate your perspective. The way that you have looked at this, the way you've lived through it on both sides of the coin as to when you were strong and when you were human. And I appreciate your story and your honesty. And I know you've taught us a lot. So thank you for your time tonight. Yeah. Our next and final speaker is Andres Larios Brown, who holds an MS, which is a master's degree, with an LMFT, which is licensed marriage and family therapy. And they are queer and non-binary and a mix of Guatemala and Western European ancestry. So how lucky are we to have you with us? They are the training director at Simple Modern Therapy in the Institute, a group practice that focuses on providing therapy services to everyone else in Utah. And we're so happy that they're here. Heather, thank you for creating this company and having Andres on your staff. Andres is clinically trained and a consultant worldwide. They specialize in queer identity development among collectivists and community-focused cultures, as well as healing acute, systemic, and intergenerational trauma for the QTBIBOC people. Thank you for that work. They have a passion for teaching and currently teaches 2 graduate courses at UVU's Masters of Social Work program and UO's Couple and Family Therapy. They've co-authored a chapter in the Rutledge International Handbook of Couple and Family Therapy, as well as a number of other articles in different academic journals. So you may want to look them up and read what else they have to say. Through teaching, training, education, and advocacy, they seek to bridge the gap between research and actual clinical practice. And we have them here tonight. Andres, please take over.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you, everyone. It's a real honor to be here with you all. And I think I want to start by naming some of the energies that I'm feeling right now. I think that, like many people have shared, it's been a rough go of it for the past couple of years as we've been kind of navigating really unfriendly, unkind, and dangerous environments. And so I feel like it's a welcome relief to feel this deep and immense gratitude, safety, and unity together. Like Lynn said, my name's Andres Larios Brown. I use the pronouns they, them, or ella if and when we're speaking Spanish. I'm a queer, non-binary mezcla bella, which is the beautiful mix of my dad. He's an immigrant from Guatemala, and my mom is of Western European or pioneer stock, for those who are familiar with the Mormon pioneers. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've spent and dedicated my career to understanding kind of a really key question. How do those of us who are kind of living in this unfriendly and unkind world find meaningful healing, thrive, and celebrate who we are? And I think part of it is, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is how magical it is to be non-binary. I often talk about how we as non-binary people are the embodiment of this concept of both and. We live in a society that likes to separate things into 2 distinct categories, either or. We're either this or we're either that. And I think this binary thinking is not only difficult in terms of gender, it also just doesn't fit for our experience as human beings. In fact, there are rarely any either ors in this life. One example that I want to share is taking, for instance, day or night. We talk about these as separate and distinct. However, those of us who have ever witnessed the sunset knows that there is profound wisdom in that space where day and night combine. We as non-binary people are that sunset, a space where we hold both, all, and neither. Our identities challenge the status quo, push boundaries, and create new possibilities for what it means to be human. I want to take a moment to just celebrate that together. For me, the journey for embracing my non-binary identity wasn't always easy. Like many of us, I had to navigate the world that doesn't understand or accept who I am. But through that journey, I found incredible strength and beauty in living authentically. Being non-binary has allowed me to step into a version of myself that feels true, powerful, and free. And when we see non-binary representation in the media, in politics, and everyday life, it's not just about visibility, it's about validation. When leaders like Kamala Harris show up for our community, it sends a message that we matter, that our experiences are real, and that our voices deserve to be heard. As a therapist, I've seen firsthand how critical it is for non-binary people, especially QT/BIPOC individuals, to have spaces where we can heal, grow, and simply be. Our healing journeys are deeply intertwined with our identities. We carry the weight of our societal expectations, the trauma of discrimination, and of being misunderstood, and that takes a toll. But here's the thing, our healing is also where our power lies. When we take care of ourselves and each other, when we reclaim our narratives, when we disrupt the systems that try to erase us, we thrive. That's why it's so important to have leaders who understand the unique challenges we face, leaders who will fight for our right to exist and thrive. Voting for Kamala Harris isn't just a political act for me or for many of us. It's a statement that we deserve to be seen, supported, and celebrated. It's about creating the conditions where our communities can flourish. This cause, like many of us, is deeply personal to me. As someone who has dedicated my life to helping others navigate their healing journeys, I know how much it matters to have people in power who are on our side. Supporting candidates who honor our identities is not just about policy, it's about survival. It's about dignity, and it's about hope. This upcoming election is critical for our community. The stakes are high, and the choices we make will have a lasting impact on the future we're building. We need leaders who stand with us, who will fight for our rights, and who will ensure that the progresses we've made aren't undone. So here are my calls to action. Our votes are powerful. They're one of the most important tools we have to create change. By voting for candidates like Kamala Harris, who honor and respect our identities, we're taking a stand for a more inclusive world, a world where all of us can live freely and fully. So I encourage each of us to get out and vote and to get involved in any way that we can, like Kat said, including in our local elections. Remember, as you do, you're not just voting for a candidate, you're voting for a future where our non-binary identities, and really all identities, are celebrated, where our rights are protected, and where our communities can thrive. I also want to encourage us to hold on to hope, to nurture and tend our hearts as we look towards what could be. In a world that wants to erase us, hope is a radical act of resistance. I also finally want to encourage us to take care of each other. Remember that we are more powerful together, we are more loving together, and we are more human together. Thank you all for sharing this time with me, sending you connection and love across the screen. I'm grateful to be part of this community. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful. Now comes the time for action. We're solid tonight. We're solid as a community here that is very small, and yet everything we do can ripple out. And it's time to not only stand up and do something, it's time to stand up and do more than one thing. And so I'm going to ask everybody to go to the chat right now. And if you're willing, commit. I am committing right now by going to the chat myself, and I've started to put in the 3 things I'm going to be doing. One is I'm making sure that 6 other people vote. I'm going to also be purchasing a t-shirt, and I'm going to keep marketing it because we'll be sending proceeds to the Kamala Harris and Walz campaign. And I'm also going to send out links to people that I know have time to work on the phone banks. So that is what I'm committing to do. And you guys have all heard it, and I will do it. In fact, I'll be doing it in the next 12 to 20 days. So please go to chat and share at least one of your commitments. Oh, thank you, Shannon. That looks great. Thank you, Kat. Yeah, we need that youth. We need that younger vote. It's going to make a difference this time. Thank you, Andres. Impact of this vote. Yay, Heather. Get that t-shirt. Share the shirts. Thank you. Kat, Philip, going to buy some of those cute shirts, or flower shirts. Yes. Look at this, making sure all women in my mom world are registered to vote. Thank you, Jessica. Volunteer at the polls. Oh, wow. Some free coaching hours. Way to go, Ty. Community call out. Language. Yes, I'm going to do that too, Jessica. And Michelle, go local, reach out to the volunteer. I love that, Michelle. Thank you. Yeah, the language, we need that. Canvassing, thank you, Wes. Wow, working on the phone bank, like you said. We have a lot of commitments coming in. Tonight's been our honor and our duty, I feel, for us to be here. So we will be posting this on YouTube. Hopefully there'll be more time for people to respond and to listen. Your messages have been vital. A special thanks to Shannon and Jessica for helping with the back end of making sure that all the logistics happened. Thank you to Wes, Andres, Kat, and Ty for giving us your words. Michelle, Heather, Philip, thank you for being here. Thank you. It's been a beautiful evening. Let's keep the power going. We're in that last bit. We got to leave everything on the field this time. So keep going. Lots of love, lots of respect. You're right, Andres. We got this. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here.